Good evening, everyone. I'm Associate Superintendent Pete Jabia. It's my honor to welcome you tonight to our annual Veterans Day program. We're gathered to especially honor our employees and community members who have served in the military branch of their choosing. I would also like to welcome those of you who have joined us to recognize those veterans, as well as some of our very talented students who are going to perform for us tonight. Before we begin tonight's program, I would like to direct your attention to the artwork here in the atrium. You'll see this on both walls here. Pontchartrain Elementary students submitted their artwork in honor of our veterans. Poppies, a symbol of remembrance of the First World War and linked with Armistice Day. Please take some time at the end of our program to enjoy the student artwork. Their art teacher is Ms. Paula Orso. At this time, we will have the presentation of colors by the Pearl River High School Navy JROTC under the direction of Chief Carl Van Leeuwen and Commander Timothy Lane. Students presenting the colors will be Cadet Commanding Officer Sebastian Woodard, Cadet Lieutenant Colonel Noah Plunkett, Cadet Major Georgie Faddick, and Cadet Major Alvin Jackson. Leading the pledge will be a Covenant High School senior who is also a four-year member of the Superintendent's Advisory Panel, Hallie Kemp. Performing the national anthem will be Mandeville High School talented music student, Natalie Herrera. Please rise.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we held at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
You may be seated. Our board is pleased to host this annual Veterans Appreciation Program tonight. I would like to introduce you a few special people Please join me in recognizing our important guests tonight. I'd like to recognize in our audience Superintendent Trey Fose and Assistant Superintendents Mike Kosei and Amy Lemaine. Also, school board members that are present, please rise and be recognized. Thank you. I would also like to point out that one of our school board members, Mr. Ron Bedencourt, is also a veteran. Ron, would you please stand and be recognized? Clearly, an important element of our mission as a public school system is to promote citizenship. We want to mark this occasion by recognizing our employees who have served in the military, because we believe that you stand as the most significant example we can provide to our students of fulfilling the duties of citizenship through military service. As veterans who also serve the children of our school system, you are especially due recognition by our community. The service that you have provided to our country in safeguarding all of us, as well as providing educational opportunities to our students, make you extraordinarily worthy of our respect and esteem. As a show of respect, I would like to ask at this time for all veterans who have served or in active military service now, please stand so that we may honor you with our applause. Veterans, please stand. Thank you very much. At this time, Dr. John McCurley, supervisor, will come to the podium to individually introduce our JROTC officers and cadets representing their school organization. Dr. McCurley.
Good evening. Please stand as your school is recognized. Covington High, Navy JROTC, Senior Chief Dale Robeson, MA1 Samuel Gillespie, Cadets Carson Lewis and Sarah Jones. Fontainebleau High School, Army JROTC, Lieutenant Colonel Terry Douglas, Cadet Lieutenant Colonel Katie Lyle, Cadet Major Kyle Cast. Lakeshore High School, Army JROTC, Major Paul Vorenkamp, Sergeant First Class Samuel Chapman, Cadet Lieutenant Colonel Indy Nebaker, and Cadet Command Sergeant Major Timothy Kolb. Mandeville High School, Marine JROTC, Lieutenant Colonel John M. Cassidy, Master Gunnery Sergeant Dalvin L. Bailey. North Shore High School, Army JROTC, Lieutenant Colonel David C. Lawson, Sergeant Ike Amina, Cadet Lieutenant Colonel Noah Plunkett, Cadet Major Georgie Faddick, and Cadet Major Alvin Jackson. Pearl River High School, Navy JROTC, Chief Carl Van Leeuwen, Commander Timothy Lane. The following cadets will be rendering the honors during the Armed Force Salute later in the program. Cadet Lieutenant Junior Grade Cotraire, Cadet Lieutenant Junior Grade Olivier, Cadet Ensign Lee, Cadet Ensign Graves, Cadet Senior Chief Autry, Cadet Chief Landor, Cadet Chief O'Quinn, Cadet Chief Roberson, Cadet Chief Gorsh, Cadet Petty Officer First Class Martindale, Cadet Seaman Apprentice Fleming. Salmon, Army JROTC, Lieutenant Colonel Bruce L. Wilson, Sr., Cadet Lieutenant Colonel Glenn Pichon III, Cadet CSM Brett Vetrano. Slido High School, Navy JROTC, Captain Jimmy Jones. Thank you all for joining us and representing your schools this evening.
Thank you, Dr. McCurley. We are happy to invite Mandeville High School talented music student Bridget Watson to the stage to sing God Bless America. Bridget?
God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with the light from above. From the mountains to the prairies, to the oceans white with foam. God bless America, my home, sweet home. God bless America, my home, sweet home.
Thank you, Bridget. And now we'll have School Board Member Michael Derman will now share a resolution that will be read later tonight at the board meeting to officially acknowledge our veterans. Mr. Derman. That's okay, right there.
Thank you. First, I would like to personally thank Mr. Ron Betancourt for allowing me the opportunity to get up and present this resolution. It's very important. Just to give you just a brief history, my dad was a POW in World War II for 27 months. And it was a plight that many did not survive, but he did. And without the fight and the valor of all of our veterans and our service men and women here today, freedom is not free. So, with that, it gives me great pleasure to offer this resolution. Whereas Veterans Day will be observed throughout the nation on Monday, November 11th, 2019, and on this day we honor all Americans who have served in the Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, Coast Guard, both in times of war and peace. And whereas we urge to recognize the sacrifices of all veterans for their courage, valor, and contributions put forth in order to preserve our freedom. And whereas there are about 18 million veterans living among us in every state and territory, and we recognize that these servicemen and women helped shape American history while serving in defense of our nation. And whereas we are extremely grateful to our school system employees who have served our country in the military, as well as to our junior ROTC instructors for their important role in the education of students and their efforts to instill a sense of patriotism in all children of St. Tammany Parish Public School System. And whereas we are reminded to honor our veterans for their service. And now, therefore, be it resolved that the members of the St. Tammany Parish School Board acknowledge and appreciate the dedicated service of all who have served in the armed forces of this country, and encourage our schools to honor those proud men and women. In the future, be it further resolved that this resolution be spread upon the official minutes of this board, with a copy being sent to all schools and offices within the school system to post as a sign of respect and gratitude to our armed forces. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Derman. Well done. At this time, a special military medley will be performed by the Fontainebleau Junior High Band under the direction of band director Jessica Lazani. We look forward to seeing this band each and every year at this event. The Pearl River High School JROTC, you heard them announced a minute ago by Dr. McCurley, will render the honors for each branch of the armed services during the medley. Veterans, please stand and remain standing as your branch of service is honored. Remain standing as long as your flag is presented. We will now hear from Fontainebleau Junior High School. Ms. Lazani, Fontainebleau Junior High Band, that was awesome again, as always. And the Pearl River High School JROTC, I think that was a new little spin we did this year with the flags. It was very nice. We appreciate that. We recognize veterans for the commitment and sacrifices that they and their families have made to our community. Leroy Junior High School student Olivia Adams will share a message with us on how I honor a veteran. At the end of her presentation, Covington High talented music student Drake Perez will play taps. I would like to remind you that after the playing of taps, there should be no applause. Instead, we will end the program with a moment of silence for all of those veterans who have gone before us to secure our freedom and to honor those who are fighting for our freedom right now. So we'll go with Olivia and then taps.
Our military veterans deserve our utmost honor and respect because they fought for our freedom. I know this very intimately as I have a very special relationship with one. My father, Corporal Justin Adams, is a United States Marine Corps veteran who fought during the Iraqi Freedom Campaign over 2 deployments. I see almost daily both the struggles and the absolute blessings that accompany his service to our great nation. As he is instilled in my family, I hope to be a shining example to my generation of how to pay forward our love and respect for those who have selflessly sacrificed so much for us. Every year, my family and I go to the Biloxi National Cemetery to place American flags on graves for deceased veterans on Veterans and Memorial Day. Last year, we met a family of a recently deceased Marine, Lance Corporal Jesse Dobbins, that was in my father's unit. It has become very clear to me how serious the sacrifices are that these veterans have made. Meeting this Marine's 3 young children made me realize that this brave man sacrificed his life for everyone's freedom, and that was worth honoring. Another family of a veteran, but in Bogalusa, who we are friends with, lost their son, Corporal David Stewart, 14 years ago in Iraq. He was also in my father's unit. At least once every year, my family and I visit them to show our respect. I think those families really appreciate when we all remember their lost loved ones years later. In addition, something else that I do to honor veterans is to be supremely respectful and sing during the Star-Spangled Banner. It touches my father when he sees younger children standing still with their hand over their heart and looking at the flag during the national anthem. If you are reverent during this moment, it can show how much you respect and appreciate what these amazing people did for us. We all must do a better job of honoring our veterans. Let not a day go by that they don't know how appreciative we are for their sacrifices and those of their families. As the younger generation, we must realize that most kids around the world do not have the same freedoms or opportunities that we share in this country. This only being made possible by the blood, sweat, and tears of our heroes. May they live in our hearts forever. Thank you.
Thank you. You may be seated. We appreciate the attendance of all of our veterans who are being honored tonight for your service to our community and our country. Your participation in this event has helped make our recognition to all veterans a very special occasion. And of course, we thank the students who participated tonight, as well as their teachers and administrators who helped to make sure that the students played an important role in honoring all veterans. If we have any administrators in the audience tonight from our participating schools, please stand and be recognized. Those who were not able to join us tonight will be able to view the program on Channel 13. We ask that those veterans who are here tonight gather in front of the stage for a group photo at this time. Refreshments furnished by our school food service will now be served. Before we break, I just want another round of applause for all of our veterans, all of our students who participated. The talent that we have in this school system is unbelievable. So thank you all for coming. Have a great evening. The board meeting will start at 6 o'clock. We do have refreshments in the back for everyone. Thanks again for being here.
The meeting for the committee as a whole for Thursday, November the 7th is now called to order. I'd like for Ms. Campbell to please call the roll.
Mrs. Hines? Here. Excuse me. Mr. Derman? Here. Mr. Luke? Here. Mr. Harrell? Here. Mr. Nation? Mrs. Richardson? Here. Mr. Winkler? Here. Mrs. Drucker?
Away from work.
Mr. Betancourt?
Here.
Mr. Lamy?
Miss Lamy.
I'm sorry. Did I call you Mr.?
You did.
I am so sorry.
It's okay. I am here.
Mr.
Come
Hersey?
in nice.
Mr. Bro?
Here.
Mr. Kuzan?
Here.
Mrs. Page?
She's attending a function at North Shore and will be here as soon as she can.
All right, thank you. Mr. Green? Mr. Green?
Okay, we'll now have the invocation and pledge led by Ms. Lamy. Please stand.
Before we pray, I would like to just take a moment for the family of John Lamarck and the Araby family. Just a moment of silence, please. Dear Lord, thank you so much for bringing us here safely tonight, Father. We thank you for all of your blessings, and we pray a prayer of protection over our veterans, past, present, and future. Lord, may we always show them honor and respect that they deserve. I pray that we teach our students to always honor and respect our veterans and the importance of serving our country. Lord, help us to make wise decisions tonight. Help us to have open hearts and open minds and to follow your guidance. In Jesus' name, amen. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We now move on to the recognition of visitors. Do any board members have a person they'd like to recognize? Yes. Mr. Betancourt?
Thank you, Mr. Coulon. I see in our audience we have Ms. Robin Mullett, a former board president. And I also see we have Ms. Lee Barrios, a child, our student advocate, and a fierce competitor for public education. And there's probably other people that should be recognized, but I don't recognize them. Thank you.
Anybody else? Mr. Dermott?
Yes, I just want to recognize Mr. Patrick McMath, who's a candidate for the Senate 11th seat, so he's in the audience, and also a Covenant City Councilman. So just wanted to recognize him for being here tonight.
Anyone else? Okay, we now move on to the public comment section of the meeting. And I'd like to make sure that we adhere to the time limit, please. First person is Patrick McMads, candidate for Senate. Please come up, please.
Thank you very much. I'll keep it short, I promise. Perfect, a timer. I gotta say, I'm a little jealous of these digs. We don't have this nice of a facility in the city of Covington, so good for you guys. Thank you for having me. Again, I'm a candidate for the 11th Senate District, which encompasses Lacombe, Mandeville, Madisonville, Covington, Abita, in 2 parts of Tangipahoa Parish. I am, one of the main reasons why I'm running is I want to bring a fresh voice and a new perspective to Baton Rouge. I think we have a tremendous opportunity to do some real good with the turnover we're going to have in the legislature, and I'd love to be a part of that. I am born and raised in this district, grew up in Mandeville, went to high school at St. Paul's, and married a girl from Covington. We are raising our 4 young children in Covington, and because of that, I've taken a real liking and incredible interest in early childhood education. It's one of the areas that I think we can really turn our state around if we invest the dollars into early childhood education and give our children the opportunity to really hit the ground running by the time they get to kindergarten and first grade, where they're reading and doing basic arithmetic and things like that. You know, you guys know this, I'm sure, but 80% of child brain development or human brain development occurs between birth and the age of 3 years old. And countries around the world are pouring significant amount of money into early childhood development programs because they recognize that it just takes one Albert Einstein or Bill Gates to really move the needle on the GDP and can change the future and the outlook for an entire country. And I think early childhood development could be where Louisiana actually takes the lead in the nation as opposed to being on the bottom of this list. We're doing a great job with our pre-K program. I think we're ranked 7th nationally in our policies, and I'd love to be able to see that extended to early childhood education as well. I've had, over the course of the last few months, the opportunity to meet with several of you. I really appreciate that, as well as Superintendent Foles. And what I have gleaned from those conversations and what I have promised and what I will promise to you tonight is that if I have the opportunity and the honor to serve you in the State Senate, any time that I'm considering legislation or a vote that directly affects the daily lives and the ability of our teachers, administrators, school board members, right down to the janitors, affects their ability to provide our children with world-class education, I will always have an open line of communication. I will be accessible to you. I will be inclusive. I will value your opinion, and I will take that into consideration when making a vote. So, again, thank you guys for letting me be here tonight. I'm about 3 minutes in, so I'll keep it short. Again, thank you so much, and I appreciate all you guys do. Thank you.
Channing, not here? Channing James? Okay, we're going to move on to Royal Escamilla.
Good evening. Thank you for your time. My name is Raul Escamilla. Last time I was here, I informed you of some issues that were happening at my daughter's school. And I just want you to think about a situation. So there's a legal term called in loco parentis. You all should be familiar with that term. It means in the place of parents. It's the function that schools play when they're overseeing our children every single day. It means that you're responsible for the care and security and nourishment of our children when we're not present. That's why we send our children to school every day. Not only that, but we're required to send our children to school every day. And so there's an expectation that while our children are in your care, that they will be maintained in a safe and secure environment, that they'll be getting trained and taught by certified educators, and that when certified educators can't be in the classroom, that there's a process and a procedure for making sure that those classrooms are overseen by mature, responsible, well-informed, well-developed adults to ensure our children are safe and secure. And when there are questions brought to principals and districts and teachers, that you will work in a partnership with us because you act as the parent when we are not present. And that is not the reality of my daughter and my family's experience here in St. Tammany. Over the last few months, I have been repeatedly asking the same questions. And the disconnect that I'm experiencing is between the policy for accountability that this board has set down and the practice of the principal and teachers of Salmon High.
In the policies of these meetings, we can't have any derogatory comments, accusation comments, or things like that. So if you would refrain from naming, then please, sir.
Sure.
Thank you.
Imagine, I'll give you a hypothetical. Imagine your child is in a classroom and the teacher spontaneously leaves. No coverage. Is that a safe and secure environment for your child? Imagine your child goes to class and the door is locked and the custodian unlocks the door and then the custodian is left in charge of the classroom. Is that a safe and secure environment for your child? Is that protecting the constitutional rights and the property rights that a child has to their education here in this parish? Because that's what we've been led to believe. We've been led to believe that as long as it's an employee of St. Tammany Parish School Board, it's perfectly acceptable. Imagine your child's grades are just arbitrarily entered into the grade book. If you go into the grade book right now, for my child, every last one of her assignments is marked for homework. There's no description as to what these assignments are. And so the policy of the board is that the grades actually address the academic performance of students, not their conduct. There is a conduct grade, which should not impact their academic grade. But the practice is vastly different. And so when my daughter says she doesn't want to go to school, it could be because she's in chronic pain. It could be because she has a chronic illness and she just doesn't feel well. Or it could be because she knows that school sometimes doesn't feel like it's an inclusive environment. Sometimes it doesn't feel like she's safe and secure. Sometimes it doesn't feel like she's getting the education that she believes she deserves as a citizen of this parish, as a student at this particular school, under the supervision of these administrators, under the guidance of these particular teachers. And it is the job, it is the responsibility, both moral, ethical, and legal, of this board to ensure that the policies are being followed. And the one employee of this school district, of this parish board, is the superintendent. And the policies need to be ironclad. They need to be foolproof so that parents can then go to that one employee that you have, which is the superintendent, and say, this is the policy of the school board. This is where they're missing. Instead, we have had to go to the superintendent on numerous occasions and ask his staff to clarify policy so that we can then go to the principal and make sure that that's being done, so that we can then go back to the superintendent and ask for more clarity. And the problem is, when you get so busy chasing your tail, you start to get discouraged. And I would imagine that any citizen of this parish would be so discouraged that they would eventually just give up and say, this is just what you have to do. This is just how your high schools run. This is just what you're going to experience. Until you graduate, just let it go.
Excuse me, just a point of order, just a little bit of clarification. We need to refer back to policy BCB1 with regard to some of the comments. As you just referenced a few moments ago, policy BCB1 states that no defamatory comments, accusatory comments, or comments relative to the performance of specific employees or potential employees shall be permitted. I think we've gotten outside of that policy at this point.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to ask that you keep your comments within this policy the remainder of time that you have, please,
Sure.
sir. Time is
Yeah.
up? Okay.
Thank you all for your time.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. Okay, we move on to persons who requested time to sign up for 3 minutes. And first, we have Ms. Lee Barrios.
Lee Barrios, retired teacher from St. Tammany. Standardized testing has been for too long held out to be the definitive measure of whether students are learning and teachers are teaching well. If that is accurate, it would also seem that the standards, Common Core, the curriculum, Common Core, and the professional development provided to teachers, all aligned to Common Core, would also be considered to be the primary factors in achieving the desired results. There are two primary national measures of student performance that are considered to be the most accurate standardized assessments available: the NAEP, National Assessment for Educational Progress, and the ACT. The one thing that these assessments do have is a measure of consistency over time and a certain amount of respect for the quality of the tests. Two things that our state LEAP assessments absolutely did not have. Superintendent John White says, and I quote him, Louisiana ranks #1 in the nation for improvement in 8th grade math on the NAEP and ranks #10 among all states for improvement on all the tests. I'd like to look at those actual numbers for the NAEP tests. 4th grade math, we are 48th this year. Between 2005 and 2019, 14 years, we've gone up 1 point. 8th grade math, we're 47th this year. 2007, 9, 11, and 13, our scale score was 272. This year it's 271, down 1 point. 4th grade reading, we're 48th. 2005, our scale score was 209. This year it's 209. 8th grade reading, we're 43rd. In 2005, our scale score was 252. In 2013, it was 257, and today it's 257. There's a bright spot, ACT in Louisiana. In St. Tammany, we should be proud to say that we had the highest ACT score in the state. You won't hear that mentioned by the state, though. The ACT average in 2013 for the state was 19.5. In 2019, it's 18.9. We've gone down. I have two questions. What's wrong with this picture? And what is our school board going to do about it before our children who started with Common Core take that ACT test in their junior year? Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Barrios. Next, we'll have Justin R. Miller. Justin R. Miller. Did I pronounce your last name right? I couldn't.
You did, sir.
Thank you, sir.
I find it ironic that I would be addressing you on the night you honor veterans, because as a retired Marine, I now stand in front of you asking you to defend my son. He has been consistently bullied by a faculty member that has not been resolved. This faculty member has made attempts to kick him off a sports team. The response from the administration, they took care of it. They added him back to the team with the caveat of, you'll never be allowed to compete in an actual event. Not if you don't do good enough, you won't be allowed to compete in an event. The response was, it's the coach's prerogative to put somebody in or not put somebody in and allow them to compete, regardless of their talent, regardless of how they compare to the other students. This is the response I received. I have repeatedly gone in there. We've made 7 trips to deal with this. It has not been resolved. We have repeatedly tried to work with this individual to meet the requirements, except for the requirements keep changing. The requirements change every time to specifically punish my son. He has been verbally attacked in front of other students, and to the point where parents sitting in their car called out to him and asked if he was okay because they had never seen someone spoken to in that manner. My son is the son of a Marine, so he's been yelled at. He has tried to work. The response I receive is nothing to myself or my spouse. They do pull my son in and tell him, you need to communicate better. It's your fault that this is happening to you. That is not an acceptable response. It is not acceptable that somebody should ever be told, no matter how well you do at something, even if you beat other people, you're not going to be allowed to compete because I have the right to choose that you can't compete. That's not acceptable. We've asked for standards for the activity. We've asked for all kinds of stuff. We've been repeatedly told by the athletic director and the coach and other individuals that it is the prerogative of the people running the program to do whatever they want. There is no recourse. This cannot be acceptable. It cannot be acceptable to target one student above all other students and treat them differently and have a different set of rules for them.
Mr. Chairman, same point of order. We're going outside the parameters of policy BCBI at this point.
Sir, I'm going to ask you to keep your comments.
Understandable.
Definitely.
My only concern is the way this is not being handled. So there needs to be a recourse, or this needs to be addressed. I am here to ask you to defend my son like I spent the last 20 years of my life doing for you. Thank you for your time. I appreciate
And
it.
I believe, did you emailed me this morning, right?
My wife did, yes.
Your
She
wife?
couldn't be here today.
Okay, and I mentioned in an email that I'll be glad to have a supervisor or myself meet with you. I think I responded right back to her.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I appreciate the quick response from the
Okay.
board. This is not directed
Yeah.
at the board.
No,
so-
I understand, I want to help. So if you'll hang around after, I'll get you information and we'll follow up first thing tomorrow morning.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, next we have Victoria Akita. Is that Victoria Akita?
Hello, my name is Victoria Ikeda. I'm a parent of 3 St. Tammany school students. I'm here to introduce myself as a representative of a group I started called Parents as Public School Partners, the St. Tammany Coalition. Together with the school board members and administration, we are hopeful that we can improve our public schools in St. Tammany. I look forward to having you join us at future meetings. I know that working together as a team, we can improve our curriculum and lead the state with innovative and developmentally appropriate teaching and learning. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, that completes our persons' actions to speak. We now move on to approval of the minutes of the committee as a whole meeting held on October 3rd. Do I have a motion? Motion by Mr. Durman. Do I get a second? And a second by Coach Lou. Any questions from the board or comments from the public? If seeing none, then everyone please vote. How many you got? How many you got?
He was absent, and apparently I did not.
There you go. He's out there. So, yeah.
10 yeas.
10 yeas, no nays. Motion approved. Okay. Next, we move on to Human Resources. Veteran Day Resolution. Mr. Javier, please.
Thank you, Mr. Kuzan. If you were fortunate enough to be here at 5 o'clock for our program that we had in the atrium, I thought it was outstanding, not because I was up there emceeing, but because of the attendance by everyone there and the very talented students that we had. But we did this to recognize our veterans, and we're very proud of our veterans. And at this time, Mr. Durman has a resolution that we'd like for him to read. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jabbia. Again, I want to thank my fellow board member, Mr. Ron Betancourt, for his service to our country and also allowing me to read the resolution tonight. It gives me great privilege to read this resolution. Whereas Veterans Day will be observed throughout the nation on Monday, November the 11th, 2019, and on this day we honor all Americans who have served in the Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, and Coast Guard, both in times of war and peace. And whereas we urge to recognize the sacrifices of our veterans for their courage, valor, and contributions put forth in order to preserve our freedom. And whereas there are nearly 20 million veterans living among us in every state and territory, and we recognize that these servicemen and women helped shape American history while serving in the defense of our nation. And whereas we are extremely grateful to our school system employees who have served our country in the military, as well as our junior ROTC instructors for their important role in the education of students and their efforts to instill a sense of patriotism in all children of the St. Tammany Parish Public School System. And whereas we are reminded to honor our veterans for their service. And now, therefore, be it resolved that the members of the St. Tammany Parish School Board acknowledge and appreciate the dedicated service of all who have served in the armed forces of this country and encourage our schools to honor these proud men and women. Be it further resolved that this resolution be spread upon the official minutes of this board, with a copy being sent to all schools and offices within the school system to post as a sign of respect and gratitude to our armed forces. And I so move.
Okay, we have a resolution by Mr. Durman. And I'd like to have a unanimous second on that, please. Can we have that?
Yep.
Okay. The motion passes. We have a unanimous second. I'd like to thank all the military personnel, the students, and everyone who participated in the Veterans Day program tonight. I thought it was exceptional, and I really think that we have the greatest talent of all the students, of all the schools, not only in this state, but one of the best in the United States. So I just want to add that little comment, please. Okay, now we move on to instruction, and I'd like accountability and curriculum updates from Ms. Lemaine, please. I'm sorry, screwed that up. Let's move back a little bit. Everyone, please vote on that resolution. Even though it was unanimous, let's vote, please.
$11.
11 yeas, no nays, motion passes. Thank you, Ms. Hines, for that slip up. Now we move on to instruction, and Ms. Lemaine, please.
Good evening, Mr. Kuzan, Mr. Foles, board members. I've come to you tonight with our 2019 district accountability update. I know that you're aware that yesterday the scores were released, both the district performance score as well as the school performance scores. So I wanted to bring to you tonight an update. So starting out, let's just take a quick minute and look at the formulas that go into the school performance scores as well as our district performance scores. So if you look at the category with grades 3 through 7, 75% of the score comes from the state assessment, that's the LEAP 2025, and 25% comes from student progress, and that's the growth to mastery progress that goes with the LEAP. With the schools that have 8th grade, 70% is the state assessment, the LEAP 2025, 25% student progress, and then 5% credit accumulation, which is measured for the cohort of students at the end of their 9th grade year in high school. Schools with grades 9 through 12, 25% the state assessment and progress together combined, 25% ACT and work keys, 25% strength of diploma. That would include our AP and our industry-based certifications. Then the last quarter of that is our graduation rate. So looking at our current performance label, our district performance score this year is basically about the same. We dropped 1/10 of a point. We're still a B. So really that's flat. So we are pretty much where we were last year in 2018. But if we look at our school letter grades, we have in the A category, we've gone from 11 to 13. So we increased our number of A schools by 2, and we decreased our B schools by 1 and our C schools by 1. We went from 29 to 28 and 15 to 14. So, but we're really proud of the fact that we did increase the number of our A schools by 2. And digging a little bit deeper, we look at the LEAP 2025 results. When we look at the mastery and above, that's the the piece of the formula that is the student performance on the LEAP 2025. So the proficiency level, which is mastery and above in ELA, we are exactly the same as where we were last year. We are at 56%. With our math score, we've gone from 43 to 45, so a little uptick there. With the student progress, remember this is the growth to mastery. It looks at the LEAP 2025 results, and it takes, for example, a student that's in 4th grade, where they are, and it determines how much they need to grow by the time they hit 8th grade to achieve mastery in the 8th grade, and it divides it out. And so they basically are assessing are students progressing at the rate that they should. So for the ELA, we have 47% again this year as we were last year, so we're the same again for ELA. And with math, we've improved by 3%. We've gone from 40 to 43. When compared to the state averages for ELA for the mastery and above, we are higher than the state average of 44. For the math, we are higher than the state average of 35. And when you go down to the student progress quadrant, the state average for ELA is 47, so we're exactly the same as the state average. However, for the math, the state average is 44, so we're actually 1 point below the state average with our student progress in mathematics. So we kind of gave you a little sneak peek of our early childhood performance rating at one of our previous school board, our committee as a whole meetings. So last year, as a school system, looking at our schools, the 23 schools that we have early childhood programs in, last year we had a proficient rating of 5.96, and this year we are proud to announce that we are excellent. That's the highest category that's attainable, with a 6.02. So the difference came in this year. We actually increased our number of excellent schools from 9 to 12. So that's 3 schools who moved from the highly proficient category to the excellent category. So, and then likewise, the highly proficient went down from 14 to 11. So, because those were moved up to excellent. The rating here changed over the last year. The categories were excellent, and then proficient was right below that. So the state added in a new layer for highly proficient. So they actually split that proficient category, into 2 parts. And by the measure that of last year comparing to this year's highly proficient, those schools that were proficient last year would still be highly proficient. So that's why we have them labeled as such. Next, our ACT. As Ms. Barrios just said a moment ago, we are number 1 in the state with our ACT score, and we are very proud of that. So our ACT score is 21.2. That's higher than any other school system in the state. So we continue to be above the state average as well as the national average. The state average is 18.9 and national is 20.8. Looking at our subgroup intervention labels, these are the academic subgroups that we're looking at. So these numbers come from the intervention labels as they relate to academic performance. The urgent intervention needed are the subgroups, the failing subgroups for at least 1 year, and then the urgent intervention required, remember, those are for at least 2 years. And also it takes at least 2 years to get out of the urgent intervention required. So we'll dig a little deeper and look at those numbers. So when we look at our urgent intervention needed, the schools that have at least one subgroup that is failing, we reduced that number. In 2018, we had 25 schools that were in that category, and we've reduced that by 9. We are now at 16 schools that are urgent intervention needed, which is a significant reduction. When you look at the urgent intervention required, we're still at 14, but remember it takes 2 years for schools to get out of urgent intervention required, so there was no opportunity for us to move any of our schools out of that category for this year. And as far as failing subgroups for at least 3 years, we do not have any schools that are comprehensive intervention required. So looking forward, We are again, the same components that we've discussed in the past. In order for us to move our school system, we need to make sure that we are aligning the written curriculum, the taught curriculum, and the assessed curriculum to the standards that are actually being assessed. So we are continuing to work toward that goal. We are constantly, just as we did this past summer, we met with the focus group of teachers, and I was able to bring to you their voice and, some of the things that they felt like they needed. We are certainly working toward fulfilling some of those things that they felt like they needed for additional support. We've had focus groups of teachers come in to build math assessments, unit math assessments. They were very excited to do so and very proud of the work that they're doing. We are also going to have teachers come in to review curriculum, to decide, get input from them on, where we need to go in the future with regard to curriculum that's aligned to not only our state standards, but the national standards. And, we just want to make sure that when we do so, that we do it in a timely manner, that we can get resources to them prior to the end of the school year and start the professional development, because we know that in order for them to be prepared for the upcoming school year, that they have both curriculum and the professional development, those instructional resources with the professional development for them to be ready to move on. So we are very pleased with our results, and we continue to work and strive in making our system the best that it can possibly be and provide the most engaging experience for our students to ensure their success each and every day. And if you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer those.
Thank you, Ms. Lemaine. Thank you so much. One of the slides I think you showed where I think we had 2 more A schools,
Yes, sir.
1 less B school, 1 less C school than last year. And yet our score actually went down a little bit.
Yes, sir.
Is that correct? That's amazing. It must be some more of that magic math we're using again, I guess. But
Eureka math.
it's just, it's kind of confusing how you can improve and yet still go down, even on the same, supposedly, the same standards as the previous year. I just want to commend y'all and the teachers in the classroom for working so hard. This is just, I don't know the exact term I want to use, but it's difficult for all of our employees to work as hard as they do and produce as well as they produce when the state manipulates everything in the outcome. And I want to thank y'all so much for what y'all do. Thank you.
And Mr. German, our teachers do. They work exceptionally hard. They work beyond the school day in the afternoons. They spend weekends, relentless, and they truly care about our kids and, the job that they do for them.
And I also want to include the parents and the students in this, because they are working hard too, trying to get through this whole endeavor and changing it over and doing whatever. But I mean, I know how hard everybody's working to accomplish this. But when you just look at the basic surface of it, and you've improved by, 2 A's and don't have one, you have 1 less C and 1 less B school, I don't know how in the world the mathematics makes you go down, but the state does. So, but here again, I appreciate what y'all do. And we're more than just a grade, a score. So
Absolutely.
we got to keep delivering what we need every day
Very
to
good
every
point.
child. Thank you.
And also, I didn't have it on the slide, but I do want to mention that we have 0 D schools and 0 F schools.
Okay.
And I also want to mention I'm from Abita, my math's from Abita, so.
Mr. Beckencourt?
Thank you, Mr. Kuzan. A couple of questions. Where we're ranked statewide, as far as our system goes, the 17 systems above us, that total school population of students is less than what we have in St. Tammany. Is that right?
So most of the schools that are, their district performance score is higher than ours, yes, they're smaller school systems. There are only just a couple of school systems that are up there that are larger school systems. So pretty much if you looked at larger school systems, like greater than 20,000, I think probably we're up there in the top 3.
Yeah, I think we're the best, highest performing large school system in the state.
We're,
Also,
I think you're right.
Ms. Lemaine, do they show percent of free and reduced lunch in all of this things that they do?
No, sir, they do not. They do not. They don't take in, the formulas do not take into account the percentage of students that you have in the different subgroups. So for example, students with disabilities, some school systems have 9%, whereas we may have 18% that are being assessed. So it's a flat, straight formula. None of those subgroup percentages are calculated.
And
That only comes in for the subgroup scores.
And what did you say about they added some proficient label? What did they do? What did you say about that?
That was with the early childhood, that the categories, they divided up the proficient rating, the range of it, they split it in half, and so now it's two subcategories with proficient and highly proficient. So,
is there any truth that next year Superintendent White's going to add a third and call it like kinda, sorta proficient?
I haven't heard that.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Ms. Lamy?
Thank you. I had a question, Ms. Lemaine. For the student progress, which is the 25% of the school formula, you know what I'm talking about? Okay.
Yes.
So is that SLTs making 80%, or what goes into student progress, that 25%?
So the student progress, that's like a student-by-student look, and what they do is they look at where the student scores in 4th grade, and they have to achieve mastery. The expectation is mastery by 8th grade. So they would divide, however many points they would need to get to mastery, divide that into the number of years they have left to get there.
Okay, you said that already. Okay,
Yeah.
I just wanted to make the connection. Okay, and so the other question was, do SLTs and stuff like that, the 80%, where does that come into this formula?
The SLTs are,
But like the
teachers.
80%, I know it's for each individual, so that's just for effective and ineffective teacher?
Right, that's
Okay.
right. That's
Okay.
with the teacher effectiveness rating.
Okay, well, that is crazy. But the other thing is, I want to thank you, because I know how hard you've been working to try to connect with teachers. And as a teacher, I am so grateful. And I know that they are, because we don't all have the answer. And we've talked back and forth about if we abandon this curriculum, then we're going to do poorly on the test, and then we're going to have low scores, and then people are going to complain about that. And if we stick with it, then we feel like our kids are not learning. We've gone back and forth. The fact that you continue to research, talk to teachers, hear from teachers is so critical, and I'm just very grateful for that. So just thank you, because I know it puts more work on you to do it that way.
But
So
that's
thanks.
the way that
It needs to be.
It needs to be done, because at
Absolutely.
the end of the day, it's the teacher in the classroom.
And they know, yes, so thank you. I just commend you.
Very welcome.
Thanks.
Ms. Richardson?
Ms. Lemaine, I too want to praise you for the work that you've put into this, and there was a particular comment that I think I appreciated more than anything. We've had reference to how we rank as a state, and within our state, and then of course we logically have to assess how do we rank nationally. And you said a few things along the lines of you're talking to your teachers, you're asking them what's working, you have ongoing discussion and collaboration. You even took the time to mention national standards. And to build upon what Ms. Lammy has said, I recognize the hard work that goes into that. And from this particular board member, I do appreciate you taking into consideration the national standards, because as a state, it's discouraging to see where we are landing. However, I applaud your efforts to try to create change where you are here today. With that said, I did have a question. It was because of Mr. Betancourt's comments that this surfaced. Do you know, could you get us the actual number as far as how large-scale districts, how we scored? Because I would like to know that. I'm having trouble actually finding it on Louisiana Believes. So I was curious, would that be a number you could give us so that we know how we specifically rank as a large-scale district and
As
state?
large, so the large school systems, we're at the top. We're number one.
We are
If
one.
you compare to large school systems, correct, Mr. Foles? And so, you know, in the results, we just got those, you know, a day or so ago. So
Sure.
we're going to do a deeper dive and get additional information as well. But, yeah, but I can get that to you, sure.
No, and I appreciate that. And there is some weird math going on. I have to mirror what's been said by Mr. Dermer because it doesn't make sense if you're increasing your underperforming schools by a letter grade. It would logically should follow through with that overall score, and it hasn't. So Ms. Barrios all along has been trying to tell us there's some wacky math going on. So
Right.
that being said, again, thank you.
Very welcome.
Ms.
Mr.
Hines?
I'm sorry. No, I'll go last.
Thank you. I just wanted to echo what other board members have said, and thanks. I mean, I'm very pleased that we've done so well with our early childhood education, and we've done really well with our ACT score. We've shown, you know, that we're holding our own there. It's just that middle area, and I know how hard our teachers are working. I see them in the grocery store collaborating, and I know they're collaborating at school, and I think some of them feel a huge level of frustration, but the fact that you have been communicating with them and working with them, I think, is going to be very helpful, and I very much appreciate that. I wanted to comment, too, that, you know, Mr. Foles is always saying that our school is more than a letter grade. And I had a chance to attend a conference recently where they felt the same way in the state we were in. It was Kansas. They said the first thing the state superintendent of education for Kansas said was, you know, our school is more than a letter grade. And so I could feel that on a national level, they were experiencing some of the same assessment woes that we are. And I just want to encourage everyone to keep working very hard and let you know that we support you and we appreciate it so much. Thank you.
Mr. Luke?
Just to comment to go along with what Mr. Derman said, you showed two boxes there of the math scores increasing from 40 to 42, the other box 40 to 43, and yet we still went down. So that's two things that were both obvious to see, and yet our numbers going down.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Kuzan, if I could, I too would like to just thank Amy and her staff, as well as all the teachers, assistant principals, parents, as we talked, as well as the students for working as hard as we can. Every PowerPoint presentation I give, I end it with, we're nowhere close to perfect, and we have so much work that we still need to do. And I know that, but I also know how hard everyone is working. I put up a slide. We had a principals meeting Tuesday, and of course, the main topic of discussion at the principals meeting was these letter grades and test scores that the state releases out. And the slide that I put up was a quote from Albert Einstein, and it said, "Not everything that can be counted counts, and not everything that counts can be counted." Not everything that can be counted counts, and not everything that counts can be counted. So indeed, letter grades, test scores, what we do, ACT, early childhood is super, super important, and as competitive as we all are in this room, I want to be number one at everything we do in St. Tammany Parish. But I know there's more to a student than a letter grade or a test score. So we'll continue to fight hard for that balance, and I know the board supports us in that effort. So I thank you all very much for that support. And together as a team, we can continue to make progress to do what best we can for every child every day. Thank you.
Mr. Lane, I just want to say, I want to piggyback on what the other board members have said here tonight. Your efforts and your presentation were both excellent. Keep up the good job, work. You're doing a fine job. And with that, if there's no other further business that come before this board, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.